So just before we start with the actual webinar, a few housekeeping tips. At the bottom of the screen, there is a Q&A tab, and that button will open a Q&A dialog box where you can type in your questions. You can do that anytime through the webinar or at the end when we have time for Q&A, and we'll answer them in turn. If we don't have time to answer all the questions, we will include responses in follow-up email, and you will also all receive a link to download the presentation you see today. And you will receive that by email. So you don't have to worry about taking notes or anything. Everything will be sent to you. I'm just going to do a quick introduction and then hand over to my colleague Sienna. So the agenda today is to look at reputation management for SMEs. So this is relevant for any kind of business or destination to basically understand what people are saying about you in China and how to manage the reputation and the brand exposure that you get. In order to do that, we'll go through social media sites, review sites, and some of the online tools that are available to manage your reputation online and responding to what people are saying about you. Now, the next slide, please. Today, you'll hear from Sienna. She's our communications manager with a long history of experience in China and tourism. And I'll be available for the Q&A session afterwards. We're both based in the UK. Dragon Trail is an award-winning digital marketing agency that's 100% focused on mainland China outbound travel. And all of the work we do is in digital, including social media, website localization, working with influencers and video marketing. We work with tourism boards, travel companies, hotel chains, airlines, cruise lines, car rental companies, etc. And everything we do is focused on attracting Chinese tourists. So I'll now hand over to Sienna. Thank you.
Thanks, Roy, and thank you everyone for joining us today for the October edition of Dragon Trail's monthly webinar series. So today we'll be focusing, as Roy said, on digital channels that can help you to manage your reputation in China and offer you some basic walkthroughs through online resources, as well as hands-on tips for monitoring and managing your reputation on Chinese websites and social media. So starting out with websites, the first one, if I can just get to the next slide. The first one I'd like to introduce is Baidu. Baidu is China's leading search engine. It has anywhere between 60 and 80% of market share, depending on what report you read. But it's certainly dominant in China. And so if you want to get an idea of what Chinese travelers are seeing about you when they do an online search, better not to check your Google SEO, but to check your Baidu SEO. So just go onto baidu.com and search for yourself. Baidu's algorithm is quite different from Google's, and it does place greater weight on any websites that are in Chinese. So it's one of the reasons it's very important to have Chinese language information about yourself online. So here's just an example of what happens when you search for Peru on Baidu. So quite a lot of travel related results come up. Baidu actually has a travel section, and that's where you can see many of the pictures there on the second photo that's on top. And then what's quite interesting in the Baidu search results is not just looking at the search results, and that is also good to see, for instance, if you have an official Chinese website where that comes up on the search results, and maybe if you need to think about your Chinese SEO or buying some SEM advertising with Baidu. But at the bottom of the page of search results, you'll see related search results. And this will give you an idea of what kinds of other things Chinese travelers might be searching for, who are also searching for your brand, business, or destination. So for Peru, for instance, there is a search result for flights from Guangzhou. There are search results for Peruvian currency and getting a travel visa to Peru. There are some results for neighboring countries in South America around Peru. And then there's a few search results about Maca route. So that's interesting to see that many people connect those two things and might be interested in Maca route as well as travel in Peru. So next website category is OTAs. There are really a lot of OTAs in China. We won't get into all of them today. If you are interested in learning more about the online travel market in China, we had a webinar last year that specifically focused on that, and a recording that is available on our website as well as on YouTube. And from that, you can learn more about all of the leading OTAs and which ones are owned by which companies and which ones are related to each other. So what I'll just say to introduce a little bit is that Ctrip is the really big one that you need to know about, especially for outbound tourism. And then also for outbound tourism, the other two biggest OTAs are Fliggy and Qunar. Although, for instance, if you're looking for flights and hotels on WeChat, the search results will come up through Elong, which is a company that's also related to Tencent, which owns WeChat. So obviously on all of these sites, you can find reviews for things like hotels, so it's quite helpful to check those. And one thing to point out is on Ctrip, they actually have an official designation for a Chinese-friendly hotel, and that is, if you can see the hotel listing on the screen, the small red circle that has the arrow pointing to it. And a hotel can get that if they fulfill a number of requirements as set out by Ctrip. So providing Mandarin language service, Chinese payment options, Chinese food options, there's a list for that. And I would note also that some of the reviews that you'll find on OTAs may be pulled from other websites as well. So for instance, on Fliggy, you'll also see reviews that have been posted directly on Fliggy by Chinese travelers, as well as reviews that have been posted on China's version of TripAdvisor, tripadvisor.cn. Those will be imported into the Fliggy reviews too. So OTAs are quite helpful for looking for reviews for hotels, but if you want to get more of an overall idea of what travelers are saying about destinations and attractions, a really good place to look is a couple of Chinese travel review websites that we'll go through today, and these are Mafangwo and Xiongyo, and we'll start out by talking about Mafangwo. So these are the kinds of websites that Chinese travelers might go to do overall destination research and decide what they want to eat, what they want to see, what places they want to visit, and where they want to stay in a destination. And these two travel review websites are quite similar in that they both have venue reviews and listings for different destinations. They both have maps. They both have a social area where there's a Q&A forum for travelers, which is quite interesting to read about what questions travelers might have about destinations or attractions or businesses, as well as the kind of answers that other Chinese travelers might give them. And then both of these websites also have travel diaries. Travel diaries are kind of long blog posts that users submit with many photos and descriptions about what they did and where they stayed and what they ate and everything on their trips. And these are written by users, and they're also written by official travel bloggers that work officially for Mafangwo and Xiongyo, and those ones are higher rated and get a lot of reviews. So that's a really good way of understanding what kinds of things the Chinese outbound tourism market is interested in, what stands out to them about a destination, what kinds of things they have questions about, what they think can be improved. Both of these websites are primarily driven by millennials, so travelers aged 18 to 35, but this is also driving outbound travel in general, so it's a good demographic to be looking at. We've talked in other presentations too about these two websites, so you might be familiar with the names, but today I'd like to do a little bit more of a walkthrough to show you some of the different aspects of the sites and how they all work. So with doing any of this research about reading the online reviews and reading things on social media, one of the issues is that it is all in Chinese. So you either need to be working with an agency in China that can help you to read all of the reviews, or you need to have an in-house Chinese speaker who can help you. If you're working with a very small budget, you might want to think about finding a Chinese student who's studying in your area and then pay them on a freelance basis or hire them as an intern to help you do some of this research. To some extent, Google Translate or Google Chrome might help you, or just even looking at pictures and seeing the kinds of star ratings will give you some idea of what people are saying, but you will need somebody who's confident reading Chinese to really understand everything. So on these websites, on Mafenghua homepage here, you can see destinations, travel itineraries, the travel marketplace, hotels, and the social zone. And within the social zone, that orange part that says hot is the Q&A forum. And then once you search for a destination on Mafenghua, you'll get to a destination page like this one. And you can either use those circular icons to search for specific things or just scroll down, and then you'll see the top attractions and hotels and activities and another social zone, restaurant listings, maps, and other information about the destination. Chongyo is quite similar to Mafenghua, that also has travel diaries and travel reviews for venues, but they focus exclusively on outbound travel, whereas Mafenghua has domestic travel as well as outbound travel. And one of the things on Chongyo is they also have officially written travel guides for cities and countries that can be downloaded for free. So that's one of the advantages of that site. In terms of their homepage, it's quite similar to the Mafenghua homepage, where they've also, in addition to the guidebooks that I mentioned, they've also got destinations, itinerary planner, social zone, marketplace. So anyway, those two sites I would say are very helpful for understanding Chinese travelers and a destination and what kinds of things stand out for them. And some of the results that you might find on those might be surprising to you, and it might give you some very good insights into what things Chinese travelers specifically might be interested in a destination as opposed to travelers from other countries. So just to give an example of that, I recently did some research on Edinburgh and looked them up on Mafenghua, and the second most highly rated attraction in Edinburgh and the second most highly rated restaurant in Edinburgh is a place called the Elephant Cafe, where J.K. Rowling wrote the first Harry Potter book. And this does not come up anywhere near the top of the restaurant reviews on the English language TripAdvisor site, and it doesn't come up in the top of the attractions list on English TripAdvisor either. So it gives you some insights into the value of Harry Potter perhaps as a marketing hook for Chinese travelers. So as Roy said before, we will be sharing all of the slides, so don't worry about writing all of this down. But the next website I'd like to share with you is Zhihu. Zhihu is a Q&A forum that's similar to Quora. You do need to make an account to be able to log in to use it, but that is easy to do even if you're outside of China. You don't need a Chinese phone number or a Chinese ID or anything like that. So you do need to put in your phone number first, and then they'll send you a code and you have to submit that according to the instructions on the screen. And then they'll allow you to go in and create a user account, all of which is very easy. Now, Zhihu is definitely, it's not just limited to travel, it's a forum about everything, but there are a lot of questions about travel on it that can also give you a lot of insights into the kinds of things that Chinese travelers like and the kinds of things they have questions about. So I searched travel in the UK and found this question, which was traveling in the UK, what are the unmissable destinations? Now there's been 54 different responses to that question. Over 900 people are following the question, and the question has received over 200,000 views. So it's very helpful to read the questions and read through the answers. Of course, you can also submit questions if you want people to answer them, or answer questions yourself, or perhaps submit questions and then have a partner come and help you answer those if you want to kind of shape where the conversation is going about your destination or travel brand as well. The last website I'd like to share with you is Dianping. Dianping is a listings website that started domestically in China. It's very strong for restaurants, although you can find a lot of other venues on it as well. And it's over the last few years has really grown a lot overseas as well, even for places that are quite small. So on the right-hand side here, we have listings for the city of Bath in England, which is, it has a lot of Chinese tourists, but it is a small city. And there's one attraction and then mostly restaurants, and restaurants of all different kinds of cuisines too. So one of the reasons I'd like to introduce this site is it's not just for a restaurant. I mean, obviously, if you're a restaurant, it's helpful to see what Chinese travelers are writing about you. But food is becoming more and more of an important part of the travel experience for Chinese outbound tourists. And we've seen on WeChat marketing this year that destinations that are writing about restaurant recommendations or different kinds of foods that you can eat in that country or city, those kinds of posts are doing really well. And so if you are marketing for a destination, it might be a good idea to see what Chinese travelers especially like to eat in your city, and then that can help you to create some marketing or a blog post or WeChat post about that. One of the slightly tricky things about Dianping is just navigating the site though, because if you go first to the Dianping website and you type in a search query at the top, it will only search within the city of Shanghai. And there's a drop-down menu, but that, again, it only has options within China. So first you need to get out of China on the Dianping website. So you do that by going to the orange words that are indicated with the arrow there. And then if you scroll down, you'll be able to see cities based by country and continent, or you can simply write in the name of the city in the search field that's indicated too. And then once you click on the city, it will take you into all the listings for that city, and you'll be able to look through them quite easily. So moving on to social media, the first one I'd like to talk about is Weibo. We generally lead our social media discussions talking about WeChat because that is the biggest one in China. However, Weibo, I think, is maybe more helpful for reputation management because it is such a more open platform than WeChat is. So on Weibo, everything is open and searchable, and it's easy to search for things by keywords. So on the left here, I searched for Graceland, which is the former home of Elvis, and now a magazine, not a magazine, a museum where fans of Elvis Presley can come. And so I just searched for that using the English name, and many posts came up of Chinese who had traveled to Graceland and their pictures and comments about it. And I also learned the Chinese name for Graceland to be able to plug into future search results. And you can search for things by hashtags as well. So on the right is a travel account on Weibo that's very popular, and they've used the hashtag travel in Switzerland for this post. On Weibo also, it's a good idea not just to see the post content themselves, but to see maybe how many people have reposted that post or liked it, or if they have any comments. All of those things can give you more insights into Chinese travelers. So as I mentioned before, WeChat is quite a closed platform. So for instance, if somebody on WeChat takes photographs in your destination and shares them with their friends on their WeChat moments, you won't be able to see those unless you're friends with that person yourself on WeChat. And then if they have friends who comment on that post, if you're not connected to those friends who are commenting, you won't be able to see the comments either. So in that way, it makes it a lot less transparent. However, I will be introducing some tools later on that makes it easy to search official content on WeChat. But for now, I would say that the comments on WeChat public accounts are quite helpful. Certainly, if you are a destination or a travel business that has an official account on WeChat, either a service account or a subscription account, you'll be aware that people can comment on the articles that you post. And reading those comments can give you very good insights into what kinds of content people like the best, what they like the most about your destination or business, what kinds of questions they have as well. So I'll introduce a couple of newer social media platforms as well that I think might be helpful for some basic reputation management. One of these is Douyin, aka TikTok. It's a micro video platform with videos of 15 seconds or less, and it's become very big this year. It's especially popular with young Chinese born in the 1990s. It's very popular in lower tier cities in China. Although that said, Douyin's own advertising campaign in China this summer has focused on an elderly lady traveling around China with her partner. So I'm not sure if that's just to grab people's attention or if they're trying to widen their demographic because they know that they're so much more popular with younger users. But for now, I would say that Douyin is a quite helpful platform for seeing what younger Chinese travelers might be picking up the most about your destination. So on the left here are search results for Paris. So unsurprisingly, lots of videos of the Eiffel Tower. And on the right is a video that was filmed in New Zealand. So that can just give you an idea of the kind of the impressions that Chinese travelers get in your destination and what is resonating with them the most. One issue with Douyin, though, is that while it's widely available in countries around Asia, it's still not available on the UK or the US App Store. And I imagine a lot of other Western countries still don't have access to it either. So to get these screenshots, for instance, I needed a colleague in Beijing to help me to search for those things and get the screenshots for me. So you will need somebody who's in China or has access to the Chinese App Store to help you do research on Douyin for now, unless you're based in one of the Asian countries where it is able, where you can download it. The next newer app is Xiao Hong Xiu. It's been around for a couple of years and it's more of a shopping platform, really. You'll find quite a lot of e-commerce and cosmetics and shoes and things on it. But it is increasingly being used for people to share their travel experiences, especially travel experiences in the kinds of destinations where you can do a lot of shopping and are known for more luxury shopping. Like Douyin, Xiao Hong Xiu is primarily used by younger Chinese born in the 1990s. It is strongly skewed towards women and affluent women in first-tier cities in China. So this is actually quite a coveted demographic when it comes to outbound tourism. So it's a good way of knowing what this demographic is interested in. And I would say it's especially relevant for destinations that are known for shopping as well as retail outlets. So on the left are search results for Milan. You can see that there are shopping related posts, but also posts about some bubble tea that people have had. So it's more about their overall travel experience. In the middle is a post by a Xiao Hong Xiu user about her shopping trip to Italy, going to Milan, Venice, and Florence. And on the right is a post by a Xiao Hong Xiu user about a luxury hotel in Dubai. So now we'll move on to talk about some online tools that make it easier to see the big picture. Because of course, if you're looking at all of these platforms and reading the reviews, it can give you some good tips and some qualitative data. But if you want to know more overall about what's being said and do some competitor analysis, there are a lot of online tools that can help you to do that. So the first one I'll introduce is Dragon Trail's WeChat rankings. We publish, since the beginning of 2017, every week we publish rankings that look at national tourism boards as well as destination marketing organizations. So that's regional tourism boards as well as municipal tourism boards, airlines and cruise lines. And we look at how many posts the account has put out, the views for those posts, the average views per post, and the views for their top post. And then we also put out quarterly rankings reports and annual rankings reports too. And so this gives us some ideas about the trends in the kinds of accounts and destinations that are getting the most attention on WeChat, as well as the marketing strategies that are working the best and the themes that are really resonating with WeChat users. So on our WeChat rankings, if you don't see yourself on the rankings, but you want to know where you stand, please get in touch with us to make sure, first of all, that we are tracking your account. And then if we're not tracking it, we will add it and start tracking it from then on. And then there is a possibility that you might not see the account because it doesn't make the top of the list. So every week we publish the top 20 for NTOs and DMOs, and the top 15 for airlines, and the top 10 for cruise lines, and now hotels, as well as museums and attractions. So if you're lower down on the list, we still will have that data and we can share that with you if you request it. A really helpful tool is this weixin.sogo.com. Sogo is another search engine in China. And I mentioned before about how WeChat is a quite closed platform and it's hard to find a lot of things that people are posting on it. However, this weixin.sogo.com tool allows you to search any article that has been published by an official account on WeChat. So not people's personal comments, but anything by a subscription account or a service account on WeChat. And not only will you get all the search results for every article that's ever been published with that search term, but at the bottom you'll be able to see the number of the total search results. So this can be quite helpful if, for instance, you're doing competitor analysis and you want to see how many articles have been written about your destination or brand compared to a competitor's. What I would suggest for using this search is to put in travel, especially if you're looking at a destination, because there's the possibility that the destination or brand name might be used in other ways to refer to things in China. So for instance, when doing research on Edinburgh, I discovered that there's a chain of kindergartens in China called the Edinburgh Kindergarten. So a lot of the results were about the kindergarten. But once you put travel at the end, then you get search results that are really about traveling to the destination. Moving on to a paid tool, the Weibo Data Assistant is something that you pay money for to Weibo, but they give you results that it's not just about Weibo, but also WeChat and news websites. And this is a good way of getting a lot of data, especially about demographics, numbers of people that are looking at your posts and where they're from in China, gender ratio, what kinds of cities you're most popular with, which of your followers have the most influence, which of the posts get the most influence and have the biggest reach. You can also track up to 50 keywords every year. So it's a quite helpful service, and it's something that Dragon Trail can help you get set up with if you need to. A couple of other tools. One of them is index.baidu.com. I introduced Baidu in the very first slide, talking about search engine. So on this, if you go to index.baidu.com and log in, you can see 1 month of search results for up to 5 search items for free. And this is another good way of doing competitor analysis too, because for instance, if you're a destination or travel brand, you put in yourself for one of the search terms and then your competitors for the other ones and see who's coming up the most on Baidu. Another tool is called Webull. They do have paid services, but they have some free services as well. And they track a lot of data and give you reach and demographic information, the same as many of these other tools. But one of the things that they provide is called Weibo Emotion, which I think is very helpful. And Weibo Emotion will tell you the general tone of the posts about a certain search query, if they're positive or negative, and gives you a good idea of overall the sentiment about your destination or business or brand online. So the chart that you can see here, we searched for the last week of results for the term travel in Canada and found that over 85% of the results on posts were positive things. Happy travelers. So that's very good news. About 7% were neutral, so that can include things like questions, and then 3.7% each were sad and angry, and 0.22% were surprised. So I think that's quite interesting insights there. One of the issues with both of these websites is it's that although they both have free services, you need to be able to log into the websites to use them. And to do that, you need a Chinese phone number. It does not work with an international phone number. So that's another thing where you need somebody in China to help you at least to create the account to begin with before you can go in and start using it. And then finally, Dragon Trail Interactive itself offers a lot of these services to make it easier for you to sift through all the data yourself and respond to it. Of course, we're headquartered in China, so we don't have any trouble about downloading apps that are only available in China, or signing into things that you need a Chinese phone number for. There are many different reputation management services that we provide. One of them is daily monitoring and management of queries, reviews, and complaints. So that would be across social media platforms, and we can respond to queries and reviews on your behalf. If there's any kind of serious complaint, we would confer with you first to see about how you wanted to handle it. We can also produce monthly reports looking at social media activity that gives you a bigger picture of what people are talking about with a destination, for instance. We can also help set you up with digital social listening tools, such as the Weibo data assistant that I introduced before, and help you kind of understand the results from that. We are also developing our own social listening tool, which will be available quite soon. So if you want to learn more about that and how you could use it, please just send us an email, contact us directly after this, and we can provide more information about that. And then another service that we do is help people to manage their accounts and also track their reputations on OTAs and travel review websites. So that could mean doing promotions such as the one you can see here for Visit Florida on Ctrip, or doing promotions on websites such as Mafangwo or Choni as well. So once you have all of the data and you have a better understanding of what people are saying about you, what they have questions about, how do you respond to all of that? So I'll first talk about how to respond to comments and questions and posts on social media. First of all, responding to questions is very helpful. In the middle here is a very good example where Visit Finland had a post about a place that you could visit in Finland, and somebody wanted to know how far away it was from Helsinki. So whoever's running the official account responded, letting them know that it's 100 kilometers away, and then giving them very detailed information on 2 different ways to get there from Helsinki, including what kinds of buses that you take and how long it takes to get there. So that is not only extremely helpful and shows that the account is really listening, but also makes it much more likely that the person with the question will actually be able to make it to the place that the account wrote about in their post. Obviously, responding to and liking positive comments is a good idea. If you don't have time to respond to each one of them personally, you can just hit the like button, and I think people see that and appreciate it as well. It's a good idea to encourage and repost good user-generated content. On the left is an example from Edinburgh, where their account on WeChat has a lot of followers who have studied or lived in Edinburgh before, and so they're Chinese people who are very knowledgeable about the destination and really love the destination, which is why they follow the account. And when marketing to Chinese travelers, I think it's helpful, on top of having official marketing information, people really want to hear what the experience of other Chinese people was like in a destination, and recommendations from other Chinese people, and are likely to trust this more. And so for this post in particular, the Edinburgh account, they asked their followers to send in comments about what they liked the most about Edinburgh, or what they thought was the best thing about locals in Edinburgh. And then they use these comments to create a post with all positive comments. And so this really rewards people for giving their positive reviews, and then spreads around that positive message to new people who are coming to the account as well. And on the right is a repost from Peru. Peru's Weibo account puts out a lot of their own content, but they also do a really good job of reposting good content that has been posted by other Weibo users that have traveled in Peru, and paying attention to that. So that's another way of not only getting good content for their account for free, but rewarding people who post their positive experiences in Peru and sharing that with all of their followers as well. One of the things that I haven't mentioned at all is about responding to negative reviews and comments. And one of the reasons that I haven't mentioned this is that on WeChat, it's actually quite hard to find negative comments on official accounts posts. I think one of the reasons for this is that if somebody is following an official account for a brand or a destination, they'll generally already be positively inclined to that place. But I tried to look especially at some posts that maybe were a little bit political and might be slightly controversial, and really couldn't find too many comments that were negative. So I wouldn't, that's a good thing that you don't have to worry about so much. But of course, if there's a negative comment that's something constructive or something that warrants getting back to them, of course, we would recommend that you do that in a nice way as well. In terms of responding on booking sites or travel review sites, this is very much the norm in the West, where hotels really have to comment something, even if it's just a thank you for a positive review. But it's not so much the norm in China. Actually, looking at listings for Chinese hotels on travel websites, I couldn't find any Chinese hotels that were responding to anybody's reviews. And on the site Mafengwo, it's much more likely that another user will respond to a review than the venue itself. So another user might have questions about the experience of the person who posted the review in the first place, or they have their own comments that they want to share as well. However, we do see on the left-hand side here is from Chongyo, and Chongyo's hotel platform links directly to Booking.com. And Booking.com is one of the Western websites where it's very common for people to respond to reviews. So again, you'll see people responding to Chinese language reviews there. And on tripadvisor.cn, which is the Chinese version of TripAdvisor, again, that's the kind of website where people respond a lot to reviews, so you can find some responses there. So it's something that Chinese travelers aren't necessarily expecting, actually, but obviously if they have some constructive criticism or had some issues with their experience that you can get back to them about, it's nice to know that somebody is listening and taking that kind of those kinds of comments on board. So another way of responding is not responding directly to somebody who posts a comment, but responding generally in your marketing to what you find out once you do reputation monitoring. So in some ways it will help you to get to know your market segments. Of course, it'll be a little bit skewed to the people who are using those kinds of websites and digital media, so it's good to just keep that in mind, but good to understand a little bit more about who your visitors are and what they're interested in, what they particularly like about your destination. So for instance, that Harry Potter cafe, and then you can play up these kinds of things that are most popular with Chinese tourists. Another very good example of this is the Japanese National Tourism Board. So there's a post here that you can see from them this spring. So in 2017, they had a post in February from their official account that was about seeing cherry blossoms in Japan. And this was their most viewed post of the entire year. And it was also the third most viewed post by any national tourism organization posted on WeChat in all of 2017. So I think they really picked up on that. And in 2018, they've had a lot of articles about different places in Japan where you can see various kinds of flowers. And those articles have in turn done really well. And the Japanese National Tourism Organization's WeChat account has seen a rise of 11% in average post readership. So it's clear that they're taking on board what kinds of articles are most popular with their followers and doing more of that. It's also good to follow up with the kinds of questions and concerns that people have. So for instance, if you see people online who are worried about the weather in your destination, you could create a seasonal guide to what the weather is like in your destination, what activities are best to do in what seasons, a packing guide, for instance, to help address those concerns. Or if they're worried about safety, again, you can have marketing that directly addresses that. Another way of responding to feedback is using it to improve your services. So if someone, for instance, complains that there is not enough Chinese language materials, then you'll know that you should provide those. Or if they mention that they couldn't make tea in their hotel room, to provide an electric kettle for Chinese guests in the future. it can be a little bit hard to get this really good constructive criticism, especially if you're talking to somebody face to face. So if you have a Chinese visitor and you ask them at the end of their stay at your hotel or visit to your destination, was everything okay? They're very likely to say yes, even if it wasn't. So a better way to rephrase that question is, how could we improve our service? Or what could we do to improve your experience? Another way of getting that kind of information is anonymous surveys as well. And of course, there are things that you can pick up online too from people's comments and questions. So now in our last section, we'll talk a bit about improving your reputation and expanding your online presence in China. So I've mentioned quite a lot about these Chinese travel review websites, Mafengwo and Chongyou, also Dianping. So you might be wondering if it's possible to add your own listing and if it's possible to manage your listing on these travel review websites. And the answer really varies depending on which website we're talking about. So on Mafengwo and on Dianping, you can apply to add or manage your own listing. I can send out links to the parts of the websites where you do that if anyone wants to know after the webinar. And for free, you can put up some official information about your venue as well as photos. However, they do need a commission if anyone books to stay in your hotel or books the restaurant or books the venue through Mafengwo. So here is an example of a hotel in Sydney, and you can see down below that the cheapest rate is booking through Mafengwo, and then obviously they get a commission on that. On Chongyou, that's actually not possible for hotels because all of their hotel listings come from booking.com and all of their home sharing listings come from Airbnb. So it's a bit different for every website. And obviously, if you want to do any kind of marketing or campaigns with these websites, they're happy to help, but they charge for that service. So that's the kind of thing that Dragon Trail can also help to arrange for you if you're interested to get that kind of media buy. So another question is about getting more reviews, because you might find that there's a lot of information and a lot of reviews for your business or destination on the internet in China, but you might find that you want more people to be writing about you so that others understand your appeal as a travel destination or a travel brand. So one good way is just to ask people for reviews. You can ask them in person, mention, oh, if you wouldn't mind reviewing us on Mafengwo, or posting a travel diary, or posting about us on WeChat, following our official account on WeChat or Weibo. Just like you might ask somebody to review you on TripAdvisor, that can be asking someone directly or perhaps having some printed materials so that they can see that when they're in the destination. You can also incentivize that kind of content by, for instance, giving a free dessert or a free drink if they show you that they've written something about you online. You can make it easier for them to review you by creating QR codes that would link directly to your listings on those websites or directly to your social media accounts. QR codes can be very creative, as we can see from this example here. It's some work that Dragon Trail did for Israel tourism. Please get in touch with us if you want to know more about creating bespoke and interesting QR codes for your brand. And then encouraging and rewarding user-generated content. So this can include having something like a competition with a hashtag. Last year, Tourism Australia did really well in the summer on WeChat. They had a competition where you had to use the hashtag me in Australia and post something about your travel experience in Australia. And every week they gave away a few small prizes, and it really increased reading rates and interaction with their posts on WeChat. And then even just reposting things or responding to reviews, I think, is another good way of rewarding user-generated content and encouraging more people to write about you too. And then finally, if you have the budget and you want to take the next step to getting more information out there about your destination or brand on the internet in China, we would recommend working with key opinion leaders or KOLs. So these are different than celebrities in that they have smaller follower reaches. They're more like travel bloggers or bloggers about very specific niche topics. So On the left here is a blogger who specifically writes about classical music, and it's his post about visiting the Edinburgh International Festival, which it wasn't a paid promotion or anything like that, but he's someone who might not have a lot of followers, but his followers will be really passionate about classical music. So if you're a destination that excels in classical music, finding a KOL like that can help you reach the right kind of niche audience. Then in terms of travel bloggers, in the middle is a travel blogger named Patty, who's very big on Weibo. She worked with Visit Florida to travel all around the state and write very specific recommendations for places to visit, what to eat, things like that. And on the right is a travel blogger's account on Xiao Hong Xiu, the shopping-focused social media app that I mentioned. In addition to social media, I think I said before that on Chongyo and Mafangwo, they have their own official travel bloggers that work with them. So another great way that you can work with those travel review websites is to commission their official travel writers to visit your destination and perhaps write a travel diary about that too. So before we move on to the Q&A section, I'd like to just introduce some more resources where you can learn a lot more about various Chinese social media and other digital platforms, as well as trends in Chinese outbound travel that can inform your marketing, and where you can see all of our WeChat reports and rankings too. So on the resources part of our website, you'll find lots of articles as well as infographics, case studies, interviews. We translate Chinese language reports on trends in the Chinese outbound travel market as well. So there's just quite a lot there to read up on, and it's all open for free. We've also got social media accounts on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook where we share not only the content that you'll find on our blog, but also big and the most relevant news stories about Chinese outbound travel that we find from many different sources. So that's a great way of just staying up to date with the latest trends and news. Finally, I mentioned earlier about rewatching a webinar on our website that we did last year on the Chinese online travel market. All of the webinars that we do are recorded and uploaded to our website, so you can see those there under the videos and presentation section. We also have a video series called China Outbound Travel Pulse, where we interview Chinese travelers and then supplement that with some analysis and animation about various topics. And the last video that we put out was specifically about KOLs. And normally for these videos, we'll interview Chinese travelers on the street or at the airport. But for this one, we interviewed a professional travel blogger and talked to her about the different platforms that she prefers to use and how she works with her clients. So that gives more insight onto how to work with a KOL and what platforms are best for that kind of influencer marketing. And then also we've got a monthly newsletter that you can sign up for if you haven't already, where we put all of the top stories, the big themes on WeChat for that month, and let you know about upcoming events and webinars and biggest news stories. So there's a link there to sign up. And then before I move on to Q&A, I'll just introduce our webinar for next month, which will be on luxury trends for Chinese travelers. We'll be looking into what high net worth Chinese travelers are looking to get out of their travel experience and the top destinations that they want to go to, as well as how they book their travel and the right ways to reach them. We'll be doing this webinar a little bit differently than the way we normally do it, which normally we'll have 2 sessions in one day. But for this webinar, we'll spread it over 2 days. And the first week, on Wednesday, the 21st of November, we'll be focusing on Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, as well as Asia. And then the second session, which will be a week later on the 28th of November, will be specifically focused on the Americas. So a lot of the information will be the same in both of those webinars, but in terms of the case studies that we use and the focuses that we have, we'll split those up between the hemispheres. And if you're interested in attending both webinars, you're more than welcome to do that as well. And if you want more information about the webinars or links to sign up, it's up already on our website at the link below. So now I think we're ready to open it up for Q&A. So if you have any questions for us, for me or for Roy Graff, who's also on the line, please ask those using the Q&A button above. And as I said before, we will be sending out the presentation as a PDF and a recording to everybody. And of course, if you think of questions later, or for instance, if you want the links that I mentioned to the part of Mafengwo where you apply to manage your own listing, just send me an email. My email's on the screen right now, and you can also contact us at communications@dragontrail.com.